Thank you everyone, and hope you all are having a nice time listening to the technology, all the tax folks. I'm just going to get into some of the, I would say, use cases or case studies where the technology has been embedded to gain, efficiency, accuracy, or whatever we call, right? And then some of this, while I was listening to many sessions earlier, some of the specific examples have been covered here and there, but I will try to bring things together. So we already discussed how digitally advanced our government and the tax authority is, right? That is evident by launch of AIS, GST regime itself is completely digital, e-invoicing, tax information system, and so on and so forth, right? The government, basically the tax authorities have been focused on, data-centric and then moving towards the cross-legislative reconciliations, right? And also the focus is on reconciliation, right? That is what we have heard so far, right? I mean, different kind of reconciliations, like clause 34A, then new clause 44 has now come, 26 as reconciliation with the books is demanded. So the tax authorities are marching ahead, right? But where we as an organization are, right? I mean, how we are able to respond to the needs of the tax authority from inside out, right? And then every entity is at a different spectrum, but some of the typical challenges that we have observed are, a lot of time is simply spent by a tax person in collecting the data and putting it in a format for, let's say, compliance. It includes, collecting data from multiple ERPs. The data is shared on the shared folder. There are emails floating around. Sometimes the tax person preparing data doesn't even have access to the ERP, so you have to call someone, you have to wait for email. And then what basically happens is, once you do the returns, you file it, but are you sure about the accuracy, right? Because you have not yourself, touch and feel the data. You have been dependent on somebody else providing the data. Then a lot of time, and I guess Neha covered it a little bit, that litigation and compliance tracking and monitoring is a challenge, right? We are a highly litigative country where the litigations are going on for 15 years. So, do we have a structured document repository to store, litigation or compliance-related documents, right? Are there alerts coming out of those systems to, point that, hey, the due date is tomorrow, or your certain registration is expiring, so on and so forth, right? And last but not the least, right, it's more futuristic. Right now, over the period of like last 6-7 years, when we have been using technology, right, and we have been collecting data. What are we doing with that data, right? As Mr. Kinney said, right, are we becoming a true partner, or are we just focused on compliances and litigation responses and done? Are we able to provide any business insights based on the GST or custom or transfer pricing data that we have collected? Right? It could be actually a financial matrix that we can generate using that data. So moving on to some of the examples, I'll try to cruise because I want to cover a few case studies as well, right? And then some of these are already covered. So where all we can embed technology, right? It need not be a big bang approach, right? You can, with the technology, you can try to solve a specific problem first, which is your biggest pain point. For example, as I was saying, reconciliations, right? So the reconciliations are required for 26S against the book, or the various kind of GST reconciliations. Your GSTR 1 versus 3B versus, GSTR 1 versus 3B, then 2A, 2B reconciliations with the purchase registers, etc. Right? Automation of data compilations and preparation. So these are nothing but ASP of the world, right? It could be VAT engines also, where the GST regime is not applicable. Automated tax rate validation or determination. So there are tax determination engines also available in the market. And of course, we know for sure for the GST, but think about from TDS, TCS perspective, right? For withholding tax calculations on dividend. So there are, automations available or can be done looking at your lower tax deduction certificates, your DTAA benefits, whether the person has filled up your 15G or 15H form, right? Depending on that, we need to compute the rate. And same is the case with, even broader TDS, right? I mean, a lot of functionalities are available in ERP, but can be implemented outside also, or because what we have seen many times are not implemented completely in the ERP. For example, vendor section mapping, your HSN code is used for deriving the TDS, or the vendor residential status in case of 206 AB, right? How do we use that and automate that, right? Because that's rightly said, right? It is very important that we automate our routine work first. Then moving on to some simple automations, very low-hanging fruits, right? Automated tax creation, tax form creation. For example, 15 CA. Right? The XMLs can be very easily generated. They can be uploaded on e-filing portal. Acknowledgement can be downloaded by the bot, and then eventually the certificates. Right? It's a very simple bot, can be very easily implemented. No, it doesn't take a lot of effort to do that. Automated document download from government portals. Again, this is a bot, for example, right? You can download your notices while you are getting in the email. You can simply schedule some bot and get it downloaded and look at it. The other thing would be your bill of entries, your shipping bills. They can be downloaded from your custom portals. I have a couple of case studies, so I'm going to skip the next block, building tax risk controls in the ERP. Then I would like to talk about automated email collation for TP cross charges, right? This is another area where the authorities are challenging our management cross charges, right? They're asking for evidences, and a lot of time the evidences are in the emails. And then how do we get those, right? So we can have technology intervention there as well, right? We can automatically scan the mailboxes of certain type of users and download those emails where the terms matches, or using this latest AI and ML thing where you can do the matching and download the right emails and prepare your responses for the authority submission. Automated creation of a digital register by standardized forms and invoices. This is nothing but the extension of, once you have downloaded your bill of entries, your shipping bills, right? You can OCR those or ICR those, right? And then create a Excel registers, or you can push those into the database again. Again, this is very, very low-hanging job. And lastly, data analytics, right? So once you have the custom data, are you able to produce few dashboards, right, which can provide insights? And for example, country or port-wise, imports and exports, scheme-wise exports, lead time for creating the shipping bill to, actually exporting the material. So all that data is right there with you, right? But use that data to generate analytics. So these are the high-level, opportunities, right? I will get into a couple of case studies quickly. So this one is a very famous. I know that many of your organization might have already done this. This is about blocking the vendor payment if the vendor is not GST compliant. So how do we do it, right? I mean, it's easier said than done, right? You may have multiple ERP instances, right? The invoices might be getting created in multiple systems. Then you want to basically check whether the vendor is e-invoice enabled and is he submitting e-invoices or not. Has the vendor filed your GSTR 1s, GSTR 3B on time or not? Whatever invoices that vendor has submitted to us in our ERP, are those actually being reflecting on your 2B or 2A or not, right? And it's basically the challenge is, challenges are, the vendors are, may have thousands of vendors and millions of records, right? So this activity has to happen in real time, okay? So how technology can enable us to do that, right? So this is a basically two-fold integration of two systems. For example, ASP has most of the information, has enabled the APIs, right? For example, GSTR 2A 2B reconciliation has been already done, okay? So now when you try to post an invoice in your ERP, can I call that API real time, right? And see whether the vendor has already reported this invoice. If not, it's not going to appear on your 2A per se, right? So I can put a block. I would say that, okay, I'm not going to pay this vendor either for this invoice, either its entirety or partially by just putting the GST payment aside, right? But then further complexities come. What if it's a MSME vendor, right? So in that case, I cannot restrict the payment, but of course, at least I can send an email. So all these things can be automated in your SAP or in your ERP, right? There could be a control framework that can be built. Like, let's say, I want to handle exception, right? I mean, even though vendor is not compliant, I want to put a hold. I don't want to hold it. So the workflow system can be designed within your ERP, so that even for one-time approvals or disapprovals, etc. So the biggest benefit of this automation is actually it has your impact on your working capital, right? So one of the entity that I have seen, it's very huge Indian conglomerate, 400 plus entities, okay, 10 plus SAP instances, having 10 different systems through which they are posting the invoices, okay? And you can imagine the cash flow impact was in crores, right? They were able to hold up the GST. And then the other benefit that came out is basically, like once they started blocking it, right, then there was additional data captured on the vendors, right? And they were able to rate the vendors. They were able to identify the vendors who are constantly in default or not filing GST return as a trend, right? So they could manage those vendor better, right? They can decide whether I should work with this vendor or not. So these are some of the soft benefits of this solution. We can, I flipped the thing, but we can actually do this ERP controls also for 180-day reversal of, if we have taken input credit but not reported it, you can reverse this automatically. There are a lot of automations we can do around, TDS area also. So one example is your clause 34A reporting, right? We talk a lot about it, right? So basically, there are, in ERP typically there are no automated reports which are available which will give you, section-wise TDS or vendor-wise TDS and like corresponding sections, the expendial-wise TDS, right? And then even at the time of posting, the reasons for non or less deductions are not clearly captured, right? So this automation, again, this is a very tailored automation where you have to look at each configuration and setting of your ERP, right? This happens in ERP, and embed some additional controls, capture some additional data, and then once you extract the data, you can automate majority of these things. Basically, the output of this automation is various reports. As I said, the reports, automated reports, first part I already covered, but in addition, it also throws some exception reports where, like, transactions where the LDC was not used or LDC was expired but still used, for example, right? Wrong TDS base was used, right? I mean, you wanted to deduct TDS only on commission, but you deducted TDS on entire, invoice line amount. That also is not right. So all this low deduction, non-deduction, or wrong deduction exceptions from your data are highlighted. So this is basically one other very interesting automation that we can, one can explore, right? And it, then like one other soft benefit like that one of the entity had is it actually got to know after this implementation the process gap and SAP configuration gaps. So they went back and fixed some of those, and then further accuracy and efficiency was achieved by means of identifying those exceptions and errors through this implementation of this process. The next, the next one, I think Sneha touched upon it. This is the same litigation and compliance tracker. So I'm not going to drive detail much deeper into it. Basically, it's a centralized digital repository of all your data document for both litigation and compliances, right? This is a pretty solid technology available in the market, right? It's very easily deployable. Then it tracks your, it has a compliance calendar, it has a litigation calendar, it can send emails to you automatically. It can actually download notices from your income tax portal and link it to your litigation. Then various dashboards are available in there where authority-wise or issue-wise litigations pending, how much provision you have made versus how much demand is there. So that kind of analytics also can come out of this kind of automation. Basically, it's a process improvement software, right? So it improves your tracking and monitoring of your litigation and compliance processes. And these tools are not just for India. I mean, it can be very easily implemented for other countries also. So one of the examples, the entity I'm talking about, right, they actually used to digitize almost 6.5 lakh records, right? It didn't only included tax, it also included shipping bill of entries, etc. as well, right? So that became their single source of truth, as Anil was saying, from the compliance litigation documentation perspective. It had 50 plus multi-compliance tax compliances covered or monitored through this tool, and almost 200 and plus Indian litigations managed through this tool. So this is, my time is up, but one last case study in a minute. So this is for the management cross charges I was talking about. So basically, typically what happens, we don't have backup of documentation for need benefit test, or also the evidences are in email boxes, right? So this technology can read the email boxes, filter the appropriate emails, collate it for you, and then you can use it for preparing your submission report. But the tool takes one step further. It actually generates submission-ready reports, right? And then even the filtering of emails can be rule-based, right? And it doesn't, even cross the privacy, right? Sometimes if the user is sensitive about his or her email, those can be reviewed first by him or his assistant or her assistant, and then released for further, consumption. So basically, there was a case study I would talk about is there was 6 years litigation, right? So the 6 year data from email was filtered, submissions were prepared, and the result was eventually the transfer pricing adjustment was deleted by the authority, right? And then this may not be just transfer pricing related. One other use case was during COVID, this technology was used by one of the pharma company, life sciences company, to scan the emails, provide certain evidences that were required by the authority, and they could comply it within 5 days, actually, because that would have been a nightmare otherwise for them. So this is what I wanted to cover today. Happy to take any question outside because I'm already out of my time. Thank you so much.